As most of you are probably aware by now, Larian recently presented to us the launch classes and subclasses for Baldur's Gate 3. There are 12 classes to choose from with 46 different subclass choices. So in today's video, I'm going to quickly go over each of the new subclasses that were announced. So not the ones that we already have in early access, but I will be doing a video that goes in depth into everything in the very near future. So let's start off with the Wild Magic Barbarian, which is a subclass that can be found in the D&D module Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Pretty cool that Larian was able to pull some things from that book. Now keep in mind that I'm giving you info from D&D 5th edition, and while generally speaking I think most things will be correct or mostly correct, Larian will probably have their own take on a few features for these subclasses. So the Wild Magic Barbarian has magic flowing through them in unexpected ways. It's a magical barbarian, but not like, an Eldritch Knight or an Arcane Trickster who get to choose the spells that they want to use in the moment. The Wild Magic Barbarian is a bit more chaotic, let's say. Now, Wild Magic Barbarians should have the ability to be able to sense magic in an area, which, depending on how Larian implements this, would probably allow you to notice things such as magical traps. But the biggest feature for this subclass is called Wild Surge, and basically what it does is it makes a random spell erupt from you when you enter into your barbarian's rage. So there's a behind-the-scenes roll of a d8, and whatever spell Larian has assigned to the number that you roll will determine what spell goes off. In 5th edition, Wild Magic Barbs end up shooting bolts of light out of their chests. They may infuse their weapons with magic, or gain the ability to teleport, deal necrotic damage, force damage when a creature attacks them, summon vines at their feet, or summon an exploding pixie, etc. Unlike the Wild Magic Sorcerer, nothing on this magic list is really destructive or negative to you and your party. Now, level 6 Wild Magic Barbs gain Bolstering Magic, which is somewhat similar to Bardic Inspiration from the Bard class. As an action, a Wild Magic Barb can touch one creature, giving them a D3 boost to their attack rolls and ability checks for what I would guess would end up being 10 turns in Baldur's Gate 3. Or they can roll a d3 themselves and then allow a creature that they touch to regain a spell slot of the level that is rolled. So it's a nice party support feature for a barbarian, but it does have limited uses based on your proficiency bonus, and it recharges on a long rest. And at level 10, the Wild Magic Barb gets Unstable Backlash, which makes it so when you take damage while raging, you can use your reaction to have another random spell go off. So basically you take damage while raging and then a behind the scenes roll will occur. So you could potentially have a spell go off when you rage and then also when an enemy deals damage to you, although keep in mind that the new spell will most likely replace the current one. Since the next subclass feature for the Barbarian doesn't come until level 14, we're going to stop here because max level is 12 in Baldur's Gate 3. Now don't forget that these subclass features are on top of the regular class features, so there's much more to these classes than what I'm talking about in today's video. So moving on to the Spore Druid, and I'm really happy that Larian was able to include this one. This subclass comes from the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, but it also is in Tasha's. Spore Druids are your druids that find beauty in decay. They love mold and fungus and things of that nature, and they also love to raise the dead, The Last of Us style. Right away when you make this choice, you'll get the Chill Touch cantrip, which is a necrotic cantrip that deals damage and stops its target from being able to regain hit points for that round. And then when you reach level 3, you start to get access to the special Spore Druid spell list, and all of these spells will be prepared for you at all times. These spells in 5th edition include Blindness, Gentle Repose, Animate Dead, Gaseous Form, Blight, Confusion, Cloud Kill, and Contagion, which are both at level 9. But keep in mind that some of these spells don't seem to be on Larian's list of upcoming spells, so Larian will probably have some replacement spells. Now going back to level 2, Spore Druids get Halo of Spores, which basically allows your Spore Druid to use their reaction to have these invisible spores attack an enemy with necrotic damage when they move within 10 feet of you or start their turn within 10 feet of you. These opponents will take 1d4 necrotic damage if they fail a Constitution saving throw, but that damage does increase at higher levels. And we're not even done at level 2 yet, as there's also Symbiotic Entity, which lets you channel magic into your spores. As an action, you can expend a use of your wild shape to awaken these spores, and you gain 4 temporary hit points for each level that you have in this class, so a nice little tanky ability. But also, while this feature is active, you get a few other benefits. The first one being that it allows your Halo Spores, which are the feature that I just recently talked about, to now roll the damage die a second time, so they deal more damage. And the second benefit is that your melee weapon attacks will deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage. Now, Symbiotic Entity will likely be able to last up to 10 turns, but it will also end if you lose all of your temporary hit points, or if you use your Wild Shape feature again. So as you can probably understand now, as a Spore Druid, you're using your Wild Shape feature for that Symbiotic Entity more so than Wild Shape. At level 6, you get the lovely Fungal Infestation, which lets you use your spores to infest a corpse and animate it. This has to be a beast form or humanoid of medium or small size, and they have to be dead. The creature will animate and then it will fight for you. In 5th edition, you get to use Fungal Infestation a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier per long rest. And at level 10 is Spreading Spores, which is used as a bonus action when your Symbiotic Entity feature is active. Spreading Spores allows you to hurl spores up to 30 feet away, where they swirl in a 10-foot cube for 1 round of combat. And these spores, of course, deal AoE damage, which is equal to your Halo of Spores feature. So Symbiotic Entity is really important for this build, so you're not going to be wild shaping as much in combat as you may with other types of druids. The Assassin Rogue is the new rogue subclass, which is from the player's handbook, and this subclass is exactly what you would expect. Assassins, hired killers, bounty hunters, spies, and things of that nature. They're really good at using stealth, poison, and disguise to eliminate foes. Now you get to choose this subclass at level 3, where you immediately get access to the feature called Assassinate. Assassinate gives you advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. And in addition, any hit that you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. So with this subclass, you really want to be stealthy before combat initiates, and then surprise your enemies and take advantage of that awesome critical hit damage. It's a great subclass to start a combat encounter, and make sure that you choose your targets wisely so that critical hit really goes to good use. Now, you don't get any more subclass features for the Rogue until level 9, and the Assassin Rogue gets Infiltration Expertise, which in Baldur's Gate 3 will likely give you something similar to Disguise Self, which is the spell that allows you to change your appearance into other races. Now, perhaps Larian will give the Assassin Rogue some more potent forms to aid in your spying, if that really becomes a thing, especially when we get to the city, but I'm not entirely sure. And the next Rogue subclass feature, unfortunately, isn't until level 13, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video because we know that max level is 12, although we really have no idea what Larian may do with some of these features. For the Sorcerer subclass, we now know that we'll have access to the Storm Sorcery subclass, and this subclass comes from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and I think also the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. This is exactly what it sounds like, a sorcerer who loves lightning and thunder. And you'll be able to choose this subclass right away at level 1 in BG3, and the Storm Sorcerer will give you Tempestuous Magic, which is used as a bonus action, and it causes whirling gusts of air to surround you, which basically allow you to be able to fly 10 feet away without provoking an opportunity attack. Nice little movement bonus for the subclass. At level 6, you get Heart of the Storm, which gives you resistance to lightning and thunder damage, and also, whenever you cast a spell of first level or higher that deals lightning or thunder damage, stormy magic will erupt from you, allowing you to choose a creature within 10 feet of you to take lightning or thunder damage equal to half your sorcerer's level. So not a ton of damage, but as a passive skill, that's not too bad. And when you build your Storm Sorcerer, many of you are going to want to take spells, of course, that have that lightning or thunder damage to take advantage of Heart of the Storm. Also at level 6, you get Storm Guide, which I'm not sure how or if this will be implemented into Baldur's Gate 3, because Storm Guide allows you to subtly control the weather. I don't know what Larian would do with that. Unfortunately, the next subclass feature is at level 14, so we're done with the Storm Sorcerer for now. For the Fighter class, we now know that we'll be getting the Champion subclass, which are your true athletes, and these fighters have honed their raw physical power to deadly perfection. You'll get to choose this subclass at level 3, where you immediately will get Improved Critical, which allows you to now get a critical hit on a roll of a 19 as well as a 20, so you're going from a 5% chance to crit to a 10%. At level 7, champions become remarkable athletes, allowing them to add half of their proficiency bonus to any strength, dex, or constitution check that is made that doesn't already use your proficiency bonus. Remarkable athletes should also increase the distance that you can jump, which can actually be quite useful in Baldur's Gate 3. And lastly, at level 10, champions get to choose an additional fighting style. And the choices in BG3 right now are archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, protection, and two-weapon fighting style. This is actually quite nice because if you already have your fighting style for the weapon that you tend to use, pick up something like defense and get that free +1 to your armor class. Moving on to the Ranger, one of my personal favorite classes in all video games. Baldur's Gate 3 will be bringing us the Gloomstalker subclass, which are Rangers that feel at home in the darkest places. Wherever the light dims, you may find one of these Gloomstalkers. Now, your subclass choice for the Ranger comes at level 3, and Gloomstalker will give you access to Gloomstalker Magic, which includes Disguise Self at level 3, Rope Trick at 5, which I don't see that on the upcoming spell list though, and Fear at level 9. I will do some more videos in the future going over like all of the spells in the game for those of you guys that may not know everything that I'm talking about. Also at level 3 you get Dread Ambusher, which allows you to master the art of ambushing, and this gives you a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. So Gloomstalker Rangers oftentimes will be the ones going first in combat encounters. Dread Ambusher also makes it so your Ranger's first turn in combat will give you some more movement speed, which in BG3 basically means you'll be able to move further on your turn. And also, if you take the attack action on your first turn, you get to make one additional weapon attack as part of that action. If that attack hits the target will take an extra 1d8 damage of the weapon's type. So this is kind of like your Rogue Ranger. It's a little bit based on that first turn of combat like the Assassin Rogue is. Another feature at level 3 is Umbral Sight, which increases the range of your dark vision, and it also makes it so you're invisible to creatures that rely on dark vision to see you in darkness. Now, if Larian implements this, you would not be able to be seen at all by, let's say, a human who is walking near you. And then even if combat initiates, as long as you're in the darkness, that human is basically blind to you until they can get a light source in the area. So it can be pretty powerful. At level 7 is Iron Mind, which is a feature that gives you proficiency in wisdom saving throws, but if you already have that proficiency, you instead can get it in intelligence or charisma saving throws. And lastly, at level 11 is Stalker's Fury, which makes it so once on each of your turns, when you miss with a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack as part of the same action. Really good feature. Moving on to the Warlock class, which we now know that we'll be getting the Archfey subclass from the player's handbook. So with this subclass, your patron is a lord or lady of the Fae, such as the Prince of Frost or the Queen of Air and Darkness. As a Warlock, you get to choose this right away at level 1 in BG3, increasing the amount of spells that you can choose from to learn. Now, unlike with classes like the Druid, which use prepared spells, the Warlock just gets the opportunity to choose from more spells, but they don't get all of the spells. Now, the spells that are added include Fairy Fire, Sleep, Calm Emotions, Phantasmal Force, Blink, Plant Growth, Dominate Beast, Greater Invisibility, Dominate Person, and Seeming. Not all of those are on Larian's upcoming spell list, so we'll have to wait and see what Larian replaces those particular ones with. At level 1, the Archfey Warlock gets Fey Presence, allowing them to use an action to cause a creature within 10 feet of them to make a wisdom save. And if they fail that save, they become charmed or frightened until the end of their next turn. This feature recharges on a short or long rest. At level 6 is Misty Escape, giving your Warlock the ability to vanish into a puff of mist in response to harm. So when you take damage, you can actually use your reaction to turn invisible and teleport up to 60 feet away, and you'll remain invisible until the start of your next turn. This recharges on short or long rest. At level 10 is Beguiling Defenses, which makes you immune to being charmed, and also when a creature attempts to charm you, you can use your reaction to attempt to turn the charm back on that creature. And now on to the Mighty Paladin class, of which we now know that we'll be getting the Oath of Vengeance subclass. Now, these are paladins that are committed to punishing those who have committed sin, regardless of what they got to do to punish them. So at level 3, when you get to choose your subclass, Vengeance Pallies get access to Oath of Vengeance spells. And this adds spells such as Bane, Hunter's Mark, Hold Person, Misty Step, Haste, and Protection from Energy to your Pallies spell list as you level up. And these spells will be prepared at all times. There's some really great spells on that list, and it's really cool to have Hunter's Mark as a Paladin. The Vengeance Pallies channel divinities at level 3 are Abjure Enemy, which can frighten a creature, and Vow of Enmity, which costs a bonus action and allows you to gain advantage on attack rolls against a creature for 1 round. At level 7 comes Relentless Avenger, which makes it so that when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you can move up to half your speed immediately after the attack. And this movement does not provoke opportunity attacks, so it can be really hard to escape a Vengeance Paladin. And the next feature isn't until level 15, so we're going to move on. Now it's time to talk about the Bard class, of which we now know that we'll be getting access to the College of Swords Bard from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. These bards are called Blades, and they entertain through daring feats of weapon prowess. And when you choose this subclass at level 3, you gain proficiency with medium armor and the scimitar, and you get to choose a fighting style between the choices of dueling, so wielding only 1 melee weapon in one hand and getting that +2 to damage rolls, or 2 weapon fighting, which lets you add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. Also at level 3 is Blade Flourish, which lets you expend a use of your Bardic Inspiration to deal extra weapon damage when you use the attack action. But you also get to choose between 3 other effects. Adding that Bardic Inspiration to your armor class for a round, have the damage that you deal hit another creature within 5 feet, so an AoE attack, or you can have it push the target away from you. Now there's a little bit more to it than just that, but I'll get more into that in a future video. And then at level 6, your Swords Bard does get extra attack, just like the Valor Bard does. And that is it, as the next feature is not until level 14, which we will not be seeing. Moving on to the Monk class, of which I'm just going to give a brief description of what the subclasses are like, because this entire class is not in early access, so I feel like I'd have to do a full class overview video to properly explain things, and this is not really the video for that. So with the Monk, we are getting the Way of the Open Hand, the Way of the Shadow, and the Way of the 4 Elements. Open Hand monks are the ultimate masters of martial arts combat, whether armed or unarmed, and they learn techniques to push and trip their opponents, manipulate ki to heal damage to their bodies, and they practice advanced meditation that can protect them from harm. Shadow monks are monks that focus on stealth and subterfuge, and you may think of ninjas or shadow dancers. These monks can turn their key points into spells such as darkness and pass without a trace, and they get the ability to use a teleport ability called Shadow Step, which lets them move quickly from shadow to shadow. At level 11, they also get to turn themselves invisible as an action when they're in dim light or darkness. In the Way of the 4 Elements, monks have learned to harness the elements. These are like your airbenders, and they can spend their key points to cast elemental type spells. Now, a lot of D&D players feel like this subclass is very underpowered, so it'll definitely be interesting to see Larian Studios' take on it. And on to our final 2 classes, the Cleric and the Wizard, and we have a ton of new subclasses for both of these. For the Cleric, we now know that we'll be getting the subclasses, or should I say domains, of Knowledge, Nature, Tempest, and War. And we can make this choice right away at level 1. Now, to keep this somewhat quick, your Cleric subclass choice will give you domain spells, which are spells that are added to your spell list. Some of them you might already have, that will be prepared at all times. The Knowledge Cleric gets spells such as Command, Speak with the Dead, and Confusion. The Nature Cleric gets some Druid type spells such as Speak with Animals and Plant Growth. The Tempest Cleric gets spells such as Thunder Wave and Call Lightning, and the War Cleric gets spells such as Shield of Faith, Spirit Guardians, and so on. Now, Knowledge Clerics value learning and understanding above all, and they get to choose 2 more skill proficiencies from Arcana, Nature, History, and Religion. At level 2, their channel divinity is called Knowledge of the Ages, and it gives a Knowledge Cleric the ability to use their action to gain proficiency in 1 skill or tool for a limited amount of time. Their level 6 channel divinity is called Read Thoughts, which allows them to read other creatures' thoughts, of course, which in BG3 would likely be the Detect Thoughts spell. And at level 8, Knowledge Clerics get to add their Wisdom modifier to the damage of their Cleric cantrips. Nature Clerics worship the gods of nature, and these are your Druid-like clerics. And they get to learn a Druid cantrip of their choice right away at level 1. And they also get proficiency in heavy armor and proficiency in one of these skills: nature, animal handling, or survival. Their level 2 channel divinity allows them to charm animals and plants. And at level 6, they get dampen elements, which is a reaction that they can use on themselves or another creature that halves the damage of acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. At level 8, alongside several of the other domains, nature clerics get Divine Strike, which allows them to infuse their weapon with divine energy, dealing extra cold, fire, or lightning damage, kind of similar to a Paladin's Smite. Tempest clerics worship the gods of the storms and the sea and the sky, and right away at level 1 they get martial, weapon, and heavy armor proficiency, and they get a feature called Wrath of the Storm, which allows them to use a reaction to deal lightning damage against an opponent that hits them with an attack. The Tempest cleric's channel divinity at level 2 is called Destructive Wrath, which gives them maximum damage when they use a spell that uses lightning or thunder damage. So when you really need a lot of damage in that given moment, that channel divinity might be there for you. At level 6 is Thunderbolt Strike, which makes it so opponents are pushed back when you use lightning or thunder damage on them. That can certainly be powerful in Baldur's Gate 3 with its verticality. And at level 8, they also get Divine Strike, but this time they deal an extra 1d8 thunder damage, while the Nature Cleric did cold, fire, or lightning. The War Domain Cleric worships the gods of war, and they also get proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor. Right away at level 1, a War Cleric gets a feature called War Priest, which allows them to use their bonus action to deal another weapon attack after they use their attack action. A very warlike feature. Their channel divinity at level 2 is called Guided Strike, which gives them a +10 on an attack roll, and their channel divinity at level 6 is called War God's Blessing, which allows them to give an ally a +10 to their attack roll. At level 8, they also get Divine Strike, dealing an extra 1d8 damage corresponding to the type of weapon that they're currently striking with. Moving on to the Wizard, where you'll be choosing your Arcane Tradition, aka subclass, at class level 2. Now, each of the Wizard's subclasses represents a different school of magic, and all of them come with a Savant feature that makes it cheaper for you to copy spells into your spellbook when you copy ones that correspond to your chosen subclass. Starting off with the Conjuration Wizard subclass, which means that you favor spells that produce objects and creatures out of thin air. At level 2, you get Minor Conjuration, which lets you conjure up an inanimate object at the cost of an action. Now, if BG3 implements this feature, they could perhaps allow a Conjuration Wizard to conjure up something like a box to climb on, or maybe an instrument, etc. At level 6 is Benign Transposition, which lets you use an action to teleport 30 feet away, and you can actually also use it to swap places with a small or medium creature. This feature recharges on a long rest or after you use a conjuration spell of level 1 or higher. Pretty interesting. And at level 10 is Focused Conjuration, which makes it so that your concentration cannot be broken as a result of taking damage. So yeah, your subclass choice for the Wizard should line up with the school of magic that your favorite spells are in. Divination Wizards seek a clearer understanding of the past. You know, it's July 4th right now, and there's a ton of fireworks going on in the background. I'm not sure if you guys can hear those. But anyways, Divination Wizards seek a clearer understanding of the past, present, and future. And at level 2, they get a feature called Portent, which basically rolls 2d20s when you take a long rest, and then you can use the results the next day to add to your own or another creature's attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. And basically, you're foretelling the future a bit. That's the idea behind it. It'll definitely be interesting to see how or if Larian implements that. At level 6 is Expert Divination, which makes it so that when you cast a divination spell of 2nd level or higher, you regain an expended spell slot, but the slot that you regain must be of a lower level than the spell that you cast, and it also cannot be higher than spell level 5. And at level 10, the Third Eye feature lets you use your action once per long rest to do one of several different things. Gain Dark Vision, see into the ethereal plane, which probably wouldn't be in BG3, read any language, which also probably wouldn't be in the game, and see invisible creatures or objects within 10 feet of you. Enchantment Wizards have honed their ability to magically entrance and beguile other people and monsters. At level 2, you get Hypnotic Gaze, which costs an action, and it lets you attempt to charm a creature within 5 feet of you, which can of course be useful because many times you don't want an opponent that close to you when you're a squishy class. At level 6 is Instinctive Charm, which lets you use your reaction to divert the attack of a creature attacking you within 30 feet. And if they fail a wisdom save, they'll end up attacking the creature that's closest to them, excluding you. At level 10 is Split Enchantment, which lets you target 2 creatures when you cast an enchantment spell of level 1 or higher at the cost of just 1 spell slot. Necromancy Wizards, which is of course going to be a really popular subclass, love to explore the cosmic forces of life, death, and undeath. At level 2, Necromancers get Grim Harvest, which gives you the ability to reap life energy from creatures that you kill with your spells. So once per turn, when you kill 1 or more creatures with a level 1 spell or higher, you also regain hit points equal to twice the spell's level or 3 times the spell's level if it's a necromancy spell. This doesn't work on constructs or undead though. At level 6 is the feature called Undead Thralls, which not only adds the Animate Dead spell to your list or your book if you don't already have it, but it also gives it a buff. So now when you create undead using a necromancy spell, that undead creature will now have their maximum HP increased by an amount equal to your wizard's level, and that creature gets to add your proficiency bonus to their weapon damage rolls. All hail the undead. And at level 10 is Inured to Undeath, which gives you resistance to necrotic damage, and also your hit point maximum can no longer be reduced. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take damage, just your max number of hit points, that actual number cannot be reduced. And the last subclass of this entire video, and wow, this took me a lot longer than I expected, is the Transmutation Wizard. Transmutation Wizards are students of spells that modify energy and matter. At level 2, they get Minor Alchemy, which lets them temporarily alter the physical properties of one non-magical object, changing it from one substance into another. Now, no idea if this will be in the game, but if it is, I'm definitely interested in seeing how Larian implements it. At level 6 is Transmuter's Stone, which basically lets you create a stone, and whoever is in possession of it gets one of the following benefits: Dark Vision, an increase in movement speed when encumbered, proficiency in Constitution saving throws, so great for a spellcaster holding concentration, or they can have resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. Now, each time you cast a level 1 or higher transmutation spell, you get the opportunity to change what that stone does or its current properties. You can only have 1 stone active at a time though. And at level 10 is Shape Changer, which adds the Polymorph spell to the wizard's spellbook and allows them to cast Polymorph without expending a spell slot, with the limitations of only being able to transform into the much lesser powerful beast forms. Now, this can be done once per short or long rest, but don't worry though, you can still cast the Polymorph spell using a spell slot, which will let you take full advantage of it in all of the forms that come with it. Thank you all so much for watching, and many more Baldur's Gate 3 videos to come, including really in-depth videos that go over all of the classes, subclasses, and races. And, you know, if you're new around here, Baldur's Gate 3 is basically what my channel was built on. So welcome to the channel, and I hope to catch you on a future video.